Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for GWBC Radio's Open for Business. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of GWBC Open for Business, and this is going to be a good one. Today we have with us Hannah Kain with ALOM. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, before we get too far into things, tell us who you're serving and what are you guys doing over there?
We are a global supply chain company. So we serve medical, automotive, technology-rich companies, very regulated industries with their outsourced supply chain. So we do everything from procurement, production, distribution, fulfillment services, and even if customers don't want the items, we take them back. So we are really a full-service boutique supply chain company. So we do the physical supply chain, so getting the product stored and distributed. We also do all the data related to that, and we do the financial side of it.
So
it's a little bit complex to understand, but let's say you are on a website and you click the submit button and you buy something, you would think that you do business with maybe Ford Motor Company, but reality is that while you are on a Ford branded site, we might have designed that site and we might have produced a product that you are buying, and we may be the ones shipping it and charging your credit card. So we are sort of the behind-the-scenes people that consumers don't really see.
Right. I think the average consumer has no idea what happens when, like you said, they click the buy button and then it arrives. They don't know how complicated it is to get it from the website back into their home or their place of business. There's a lot of moving parts.
That is correct. And I think, though, in 2020, a lot of companies got to be very conscious about the supply chain and what happens with the supply chain. And the consumers certainly saw it early in the pandemic with the disruptions, etc. But it is very complex. Actually, one of my favorite things to talk about is that in the old days when you wanted to test supercomputers, they used to test them on weather systems, very complex weather systems. But today they test them on supply chains because supply chain is just so complex that even the supercomputers sometimes have a problem solving the issues related to supply chain.
So how did you get into this line of work? This is a pretty male-dominated industry.
It is, but with a lot of opportunities. It's a big growth industry. It's actually, even though the industry still has ways to go, there's fairly much pay equity, at least less inequality in supply chain, and it really builds on a number of strengths that women have, including very, very strong collaboration, because in the end, supply chain is very much about collaboration. So I started ALOM in 97 along with some other supply chain specialists, and our vision was we wanted to be really very quality-oriented, very service-oriented, but also very fast. And I had this weird vision that we could produce and ship for delivery next day. And I can't even tell you how many people laughed at us about that. And today, that's exactly what we are doing. So it's been very fulfilling to see that. I originally, before I started ALOM, I was what I call gainfully employed, and I was employed with a competitor and didn't like the business methods and thought that there were some opportunities to make a company that was different, had a different perception of corporate social responsibility. So even before that became a common concept, I was very conscious about that early on.
So now, for the people who don't understand the ins and outs of the supply chain, like you're dealing with the trucking, you're dealing with kind of warehousing. There's a lot of places that historically have been, like we said, male dominated, but they're not necessarily done in that same manner today where it requires like a lot of strength or things like that. There's a lot of a place for women to participate and thrive in this environment in today's world, right?
Yeah, I don't do a lot of lifting of boxes these days. So it's very technology driven. It's very tools driven, and of course, we're working and shipping out of 19 locations globally, and each of these locations we have warehouses and we have inventory and we have to move stuff around. But, you do that using tools. And actually, we have upwards of 60% female staff members. And a lot of our equipment staffers, such as forklift drivers, are women. And it's a great opportunity for women in supply chain. And as I said, the great pay equity, there are even some areas such as procurement where women make more money than men.
Right. I'm just trying to, for the young women out there that are listening, I want them to not think of this as maybe they pictured it in their head 20, 30 years ago, because this is a more woman-friendly environment today with all of technology and robotics and big machinery that you don't have to do what you used to have to do back in the day. This is definitely more. I don't want women to self-select out before they educate themselves about all the opportunities that are in this industry.
Absolutely. I'm with you. And as I said, we are sort of dealing with three different supply chains. So the physical, which sometimes requires some lifting, but mainly, as you said, there's equipment for that, but also the technology. So we have a lot of female programmers and engineers who are working in that part of our business. And then, of course, the financial. So where you are doing things like processing the credit cards and stuff like that. So it's partially electronic, but it's also partially financial. So lots of opportunities. And so if you think about an area such as procurement, where you're doing purchasing, you're making sure that the suppliers are following good corporate social responsibility and generally are delivering quality and delivering on time. Well, there's not a lot of physical heavy lifting. There might be a lot of other heavy lifting in doing that.
So now let's talk a little bit about how COVID impacted your business and your team and how you were able to kind of navigate that, and I'm sure still navigating that.
Absolutely. So of course, we were immediately impacted, and we are an essential business because we do medical products. And so we very early on started doing medical testing kits, COVID-19 testing kits. And today we are one of the major providers of COVID-19 testing kits. I am very proud of that because in the beginning, when the pandemic hit, I set 6 goals for myself and the company. And of course, the number one goal was to keep everybody safe. But one of my other goals was to be part of the solution to the pandemic. And that's exactly what we're doing here. And for me, that's a very important part of our corporate social responsibility is to be part of the solution. So when the pandemic hit, the first thing we did was, of course, do a plan for keeping everybody safe. And as you probably recall in the beginning, there was so little known about how the virus spread and things like that. So we have kept adjusting that plan. We currently do about 40 different activities going to ensure that everybody is safe. And of course, we are one of the companies that have to be open. We have to have people on site. That's how we produce the kits. Everybody who can work from home, of course, works from home remotely. So we have both environments. It makes it a little bit challenging sometimes, but, that's just how it is. And nobody has gone through 2020 without facing a lot of challenges. So I'm grateful that we are part of the solution. I'm grateful that my staff members are staying safe and really have been able to ship uninterrupted throughout this entire pandemic. That has been very exciting for me. It's been a lot of work for everybody on my team to ensure that we continue to ship on time. But it's also been a big responsibility as we are shipping life-saving products, that we continue to ship and we continue to deliver and keeping not just people internally as safe as possible, but the greater population. So very, very satisfying, but also very challenging.
So now, can you talk about your vision about the future of supply chain? It changes so rapidly with technology. Just there's more and more bandwidth. There's more and more ways to communicate. And it just the future seems to be ever changing. If there was ever an industry that has to adapt and react, it's the supply chain industry. Can you talk about your vision of how you see this industry evolving?
Well, supply chain is really, you got it right. Supply chain is really evolving all the time. I see many changes that have happened over the last 10 years, and year by year, certainly the supply chain have gotten more complex. What's happening now is technology is catching up, and we are starting to see technology to be more useful and help solve some of the key areas in supply chain. So there are right now a couple of different trends that I'm following very closely. One is all the geopolitics. So lots of countries out there being very focused on their own production and taking a very nationalistic approach to trade. And so our entire supply chain until recently was entirely predicated on having free trade go across countries. And I think as I'm seeing what's happening now, it's getting to be more and more complex and more restricted. And so that's a trend I'm following very closely. For women-owned businesses out there, though, there's also opportunities in that because corporations are looking to near source. They're looking to procure, to buy products locally such that they don't have to transport them. The transportation is, of course, fraught with risks and disruptions these days, or get them over borders, which is also getting more and more complex. So that entire scenario opens up some new opportunities for WBs, for women business enterprises, in capturing new markets, capturing new customers, and really leveraging that corporations are starting to look differently at the supply chain. There's also a number of there's also growing evidence that consumers are looking more at whether WBEs, whether products are produced locally and whether it's produced by women-owned companies. And so those advantages is another thing that WBEs can leverage. So lots of opportunities out there for women-owned businesses and for any businesses close to the marketplace. So I see that as one big trend. And then I think it's all consumer-driven, right? So we are getting to be more and more consumer-driven. If you think back 10 or 20 years, products got produced and consumers went and bought them, or maybe not. But today we are looking more at consumers going out and being very interested in product, and then product is being produced more or less just in time and to specifications and customized. And so we require much more flexibility in the supply chain and agility, meaning customers all of a sudden get an idea about what they want, and then we react to it and deliver the product. So we saw that especially here during the pandemic as consumers started panic buying and all of a sudden demand went up. It's still up a lot if you want to go and buy a desk for your home office or electronics or other stuff to make you productive at home. You'll see that it's very hard to buy. There are lots of lead time. So that's just one example of demand fluctuation where consumers are driving big changes. We are going to see even more of that. So those are the two big trends that I'm following right now.
And it seems like the customer expectation of getting things, almost immediately now has really, time has condensed dramatically. Like now people want it in hours rather than days or weeks. So that expectation that's happening in their own personal life is getting translated, I think, in the business community as well.
You're absolutely right about that, Lee. And I think in addition, when you look at consumer behavior, it's not just how fast they want it in the way they want it. Meaning they want to be able to go to a store, or they want to get it at home. They maybe want to get it at home, but be able to return it to a store, or, any combination of that. So you have the consumer being much more in control of how they want it, when they want it, in which condition they want it, etc. And again, it puts a lot of demands on the supply chain, and it's part of what I thrive on is to be, and my staff, frankly, is to be able to deliver to those specifications and help our customers both understand what it is the customers really are telling them, and also deliver to that. And, that flexibility is something we have built into our systems and our way of thinking and the way we are doing business. And that's really what allowed us to then go in and do the COVID-19 testing kits and produce them and ship them, because we are really very fast at adapting to new situations in the market. And that's going to be a requirement in the future in supply chain.
So now, early on, you decided to become involved as being a woman founder and CEO. You decided to kind of lean into that and become a certified woman business. What was the thinking there to register as a woman-owned business? Fairly early in your kind of life.
Well, I felt a couple of different things. One was, of course, that when you are a woman business owner, you do encounter difficulties that maybe others will not encounter. And so there are also some advantages, and some of the most progressive corporations especially in the US, have set aside purchasing organizations to help you navigate their systems, etc. And I decided it was a good thing to avail myself of it. Now, I got another thing out of it that I was really not the driving force of women businesses. So that camaraderie and support and togetherness with other female business owners has been really important to me. So I'm very involved in that entire community. I feel it's a key area for me to be involved in. So I'm involved on a national basis with WeBank, Women Business Enterprise National Council, and have been on the board for a number of years. I'm heading up the global committee, the global team for the forum, which organizes all the 14,000 WBEs in WeBank. And I'm on the board of the regional partner organization that's in California. I have a lot of respect for the regional partner organizations. We are active in a number of regional partner organizations. And, I think what the GWBC is doing is fantastic, really helping WBEs in the local area get visibility and shine through this period. So a lot of companies have gone through hardship this year, but the way we are working together as WBEs, we can support each other either morally or otherwise and try to send business to each other. Which has been a key thing we are doing as an organization, and I know a number of other WBs are doing. And also help alert each other to opportunities within corporations. So it's a true sisterhood, a great network, and certainly GWBC is a key integral part of that.
Well, Hannah, thank you so much for sharing your story. You're doing such important work, and we appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and wishing everybody who's listening in a great end to 2020 and much luck in 2021.
So now, if somebody wanted to learn more about your organization or connect with you or somebody on your team, if they have supply chain needs, what's the website?
It's www.alom.com. And we have contact us on there, and we'll respond right away if anybody has questions or if there's anything I can do for anybody, whether it's a WBE sister or anybody else. We are here to support you.
All right. Thank you again, Hannah, for sharing your story.
Thank you.
All right. This is Lee Cantor. We'll see you all next time on GWBC Open for Business.